the Israelites, G. By now you can't see. Type it in, I beg you please. Type it in, I beg you please. We the Israelites, G. By now you can't see. Type it in, I beg you please. Type it in, I beg you please. No religion, my brother. Straight roots and culture. See the people over there in Israel, those guys are vultures. They took us away, made us into slaves, took away our last names. Animals we became, didn't even have any shoes on our feet. Gave us crap food to eat, the same food we still eat. Oxtail, pig's tail, cow food, chicken food. Take a look, hey, we've been conditioned, you see. Biggest weapon, Christianity. Teaching the people to follow tradition, which our ancestors never heard or seen. Christmas, not in the Bible, G. Easter, not in the Bible, G. Lent, not in the Bible, G. Rah. That's not what the pastor preached to me. He told me the law is down the way. He said by grace that we are free. No, there has to be law and order. Without order, there's no order. How can you be judged without no borders? No blueprint, no rota, no instructions, no guidelines, no manual of how to rise. Real eyes, realize, realize, Israelites, it's time to rise. It's time to rise. It's time to rise. We the Israelites, G. By now you can't see. Type it in, I beg you please. Type it in, I beg you please. We the Israelites, G. By now you can't see. Type it in, I beg you please. Type it in, I beg you please. Hallelujah. 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 Zion. To the 12 tribes of Israel scattered worldwide, to the four corners of the earth, fulfilling prophecy to the letter, Zion. This is Moreh Yoshiyahu, Dawid ben Israel of the Ark, saying to all of you, my father's children, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. And we do give our Abba Yah praise, honor, and glory for what he is doing among the household of the hopeful. The children of Israel, the 12 tribes, by waving his hand a second time, Zion, to recover those whom he hath scattered. Hallelujah. 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 Regardless of what you've been told, regardless of what they are showing you on social media, television, news outlets, Zion, regardless of what they taught you here in Babylon, here in the valley of the shadow of death, the land of our captivity. Oh, yes, they taught you evolution. They taught you random selection
of what they call Mother Nature, which is a lie from the pit of hell. Regardless of the marches and the voices that are speaking contrary to Torah, you and I, Zion, must remember this truth and live by it. Life, human life, my life, your life, Zion, is precious. For our Elohim, Yahuwah, our high power, our King of kings and Master of masters, did not leave you and I to some random selection of chance, Zion. No, you and I are created, Zion, in the very image and likeness of our Almighty Yah. And therefore, we ought to reflect Him, Zion, in our walk, in our talk, and in our living. For our life is significant. Oh, yeah, they say, oh, you're insignificant. No, you're not, Zion. Oh, you're just an accident. No, you are not, Zion. Oh, you know them is just nickels. No, you are not, Zion. You are valuable. And we need to see that all of Israel, Zion, the 12 tribes of Israel, we were set apart from the rest of the world. I'm going to prove it. And we are to be like him. We're not supposed to follow the nations that are around us. Tonight, the heart of the Moray is heavy. And the reason my heart is heavy tonight is because I think, or I'm hoping this is not the case with Zion. But it seems when I look over the landscape of this Babylonian, Egyptian, Sodom and Gomorrah nation that we live in. That for some reason we are starting to, maybe not just starting to, but for some reason we are devaluing the life of a human. And I'm going to take it a step further, devaluing the life of the true bloodline descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who are in a blood covenant with Almighty Yah, our Abba Yah. And I don't know why we believe anything other than the Bible, because the word of Yah is true. And this idea that we can legislate or march or protest or argue over the sanctity of life and the value of life is really not according to Torah. And again, we don't live our lives according to the dictates of this demonic, democratic, devil delusion that we find ourselves in, dilemma. No. We live our lives according to that Holy Bible. We are in this world, unfortunately, but we're not of this world. And therefore, we receive our orders, Zion, from on high. You are valuable. You're not a mistake. You're not an afterthought. No, you, according to the Bible, you are, and I'll explain it later, fearfully and wonderfully made. As a matter of fact, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. As I watch this Babylonian system corrode, and as it disintegrates from the inside, as it takes steps towards its own demise, one of the signs of a nation that is falling, that is corrupting itself, that is imploding, is when the nation has little or no regard for life. And whew, I hate to be the one to tell you, but especially if they don't have regard for the life of the Israelite, the set apart, the light of the world and the salt of the earth. And we live in a society right now that has devalued our lives to the point that in some instances, animals get better care and better treatment than Israelites. So therefore, I want to examine just for a few more minutes what our grandfather said to try to encourage us, Zion. Let us go to the 139th Psalm. Yes, 139, verse 1. Oh, yeah. That's how it starts off. You have searched me. Who? You have searched me and known me. Right there. Right there is enough to complete the study. I just can't go too deep, but he says, Yah, the maker, creator, and sustainer of all that is. Yah, the omnipotent, the omnipresent. Yah, the omniscient. You know me. He said, you know me. And you searched everything about me. Verse 2. Listen to this, Zion. You know when I sit down. You know my uprising. Yes. You understand my thoughts afar off. For Yah to have that kind of personal and intimate knowledge is evident that what the world says about you and what the Torah says about you is two totally different things. People will say, you ain't nothing. You ain't gonna be nothing. You ain't got no value. You might as well go do this. You might as well go do this. You might as well be like this. Then you read the Torah and it says, no, you compasses my path. In other words, he says, Yah, everywhere I go, you are all around me. It's incredible, isn't it? So how can you be without value? How can you be nothing or nobody or just a group of this or that when he literally says you encompass my path, my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways? For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Yah, thou knowest it altogether. You know every single word I'm going to say. Thou hast beset me behind and before. And again, that word is not, of course, that's like King James Version. But what he's saying is, you have put like a hedge around me, in front of me and behind me. You have a hedge around me. Yes. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, and it's high, I can't attain unto it. He was like, it's hard for me to even try to understand how much you know me, my up, whether I'm up or down, whether I'm on a path or not. It's amazing. He said, and when I start thinking about the creator of the universe, the most powerful of all, the King of Kings and Master of Masters, actually knowing me to such a degree, he says, is beyond me. And it is, Zion. Whither shall I go from thy ruah? Now he said, is there anywhere I can go? Now look at what he says. Or whether shall I flee from thy presence? He said, number one, I can't leave your spirit, and I can't ever leave your presence. I'm always in your presence. If I ascend unto heaven, thou art there. He doesn't mean necessarily here like what we think in terms of dying and going to heaven. He's literally speaking in terms of heaven being the sky. And he was saying, if I was able to go up into the sky, he said, you're there. Then he said, if I make my bed in hell, which is Sheol, so now he's talking about where? Down in the ground. So this is what the psalmist, this is what our grandfather's saying. It doesn't matter how high I travel into the sky or how low I go down into the earth. He said, behold, you're going to be there. Verse 9. He says, if I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea. So what is he saying now? Now look at the poem. It's very poetic. He says, if I could take the wings of the morning, in other words, you'd have to wake up early in the morning to see the wings of the morning. But it represents the light and the expanses of like the sunrise. And he said, if I could use that to be like wings and fly, how far are you going to fly? I'm just going to fly all the way across the sea. He says, I'm going to go way out and I'll end up somewhere on an island somewhere on a whole nother continent. He says, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. There, that right hand is, again, we talked about that being a picture of Hamashiach. We saw that in the Exodus, and we saw the right hand of Yah in Isaiah. We're gonna get to that in a moment, but I just want to share this with you. So he says, your right hand shall hold me. Verse 11, if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. In other words, even the darkest of dark, whether it is physical darkness or you end up in some type of spiritual darkness or emotional darkness, we sometimes use the term like going through very dark times. He said, yeah, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike unto thee. What is he saying? He's saying, when it comes to me, This is our grandpa talking. He says, Yah, when it comes to me, you see everything all the time. You're acquainted with it. And whether I'm in darkness or whether I'm in light, it makes no difference to you because light and dark is the same to you. So whether I'm in trials or tribulation, or whether I am in festivity and celebration, he said, you are still there. Whether I'm experiencing my darkest days or I'm experiencing my brightest days, he said it doesn't make any difference to you because night and day, darkness and light, he says, when it comes to you, it's the same. You can see me. Verse 13, this is where I'm going. For thou possessed my reins. Now that is a King James Version, Elizabethan way of simply saying that Yah put you together. It's true. It's just another way of saying that Yah formed the inward parts of you. Or in this case, he's speaking in first person. He's saying, you are the one who put all of my body parts together. You're the one that created all of my inward parts. So that's all of my, all my inward parts, my lungs, my liver, my spleen, my stomach, all of my innards, the heart, of course, right? So you're talking about that. And it also means that he is the one who put the sinews, or what we say today, the tendons and the bones and the muscles, tied them all together, and then put all of those systems in place. So, we have a digestive system, then we have a whole system that's set up so that we can see. And then there's a whole nother system set up for smelling, a whole nother system set up for hearing, a whole nother system set up for feeling, a whole nother system set up for digestion, another system for changing carbon dioxide into oxygen, and then that is being used for the body and the bloodstream and the system. Then you have all of these different chemicals inside the body. And different chemicals do different things to break down foods and to send this here and send this over here. And then you got blood cells, and some of them help when you get cut. You got white blood cells that run to the rescue. And he says, when I start really putting all that together, and I think about how you were able to do that, he says, and you did all of this under the cover of my mother's womb. Now what he says is, you really built me in the dark. That's what he says. You made me and completed me and even put skin on me. Not only did you build this entire system, and again, this is just for thought, because I'm trying to tell you that you're wonderful and that you're marvelous, fearfully and wonderfully made. He said, but you did all of this in the dark, inside of my mother's womb. Watch this. Verse 14. For I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Just want to focus on that in a couple of more minutes that we have together. He said, fearfully and wonderfully made. So the word in Hebrew, most of us know that word Yareh by now. which means to fear. And that's where we get the word to fear. But Yireh is much more than that. So when he says you're fearfully made, what does he mean? And I'm not going to try to get all into these different all these different types of speeches like perfect, feminine, masculine, imperative, and all that kind of stuff, because that's really not the focus of what I want to do right now. But I do want to bring out one thing, Zion, without us getting too technical. I want to talk about this word fear as something that causes astonishment and awe. So when he says, when I think about myself, he says, and what you have done, how you know me, and how you this all the things I've read, and then he says, and then when I think about how you made me, he was like, that's your work. We operate, and he says, now we dealing in something that's beyond me. He says, this is your work. And the word here, the meaning behind this word is, it's just too perfect. It's too precise. Everything is just running, all these systems and things, my hair, my skin, my eyes, my taste, my mind, my living, everything about. He was like, that is something that's so right and so perfect, it should cause us to be in awe. Watch it. And here's what happens. Once we are in awe, or we are astonished, and we understand it was Yah that did it, he's saying that alone ought to do what? Create in us a healthy fear of Yah. In other words, we ought to, if he's the one who made us, and he fashioned us, and he knows us, and he's with us, and he knows our thoughts before we think it, and he knows our words before we speak them. He knows when we're going to lay down before we lay down. He knows how we're going to rise up before we rise up. He said, nowhere I can go, and since I've been here, there's nowhere I can go into the sky. That you won't be there, or down into the ground, or across the seas. He says, because you started this in my mother's womb, and you fashioned me in the darkness of my mother's womb, and you put all these systems in place, and you didn't need any tools. You didn't need to do any kind of search. You did your thing, and you put these systems in place. Anyone with that kind of power, people ought to be in awe, and they ought to worship. But not only does he use that word fearful, which means wonderful or glorious, but he does use a word wonderful here. He says you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And it's very interesting because this first word in English, fearful, has in it the definition of wonderful. So what does the second word wonderful mean? And this is where I wanted to go in this thought and in this study. This word wonderful in Hebrew, I want you to hear me, Zion. It is palah. All right. So it's spelled Pei Lamed Hey, palah. And the translators, it's so interesting. The translators translated the first word fear, which is really awe astonishment, and wonder. And then they translated this second word, wonderful, but really, pala actually means separated or distinct. Wait, Maury, what? Yeah. The first word really means wonderful, awe, and it should bring, you should reverence and fear Yah as a result of how perfect he works his work, even if he's working it inside of the womb, right? Of the building you piece by piece, system by system, cell by cell, sinew by sinew, muscle by muscle, right? He's building. That word wonderful really belongs to the first word. This second word, let me tell you, the second word means distinct. It means separated. Maury, what do you mean by that? He's literally saying, I'm different than everybody else. I'm distinct, separate. Here's a word that we can use and still be accurate. He says, I'm unique. So therefore, our grandfather says, when Yah made me and began to fashion me inside of my mother's womb, he did not make me a carbon copy of anyone else. He literally uses the word, he made me separate and unique. And that is a wonderful thing. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a second because, again, I try to keep these studies kind of short because I just want you all to really think about what I'm teaching. But I want you to go back and read the Bible for yourself because you will begin to see this. He says, I am. So let's put the words in Hebrew back in. He said, let's put the Hebrew definitions in the verse and then listen to how the verse sounds. I will praise thee, for I am made in a astonishing and awesome way. I am made wonderful. And on top of that, I am also made distinct and separate from everyone else that is made. And that's why our grandfather wrote this in order to encourage us to give us reverence and honor and glory to our Abba, that we would do what? That we would also praise him. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. What he says is, it's a marvelous thing because not only have you made the body right, then you made me separate from everyone else, unique. And it is all, he says, but at the same time, then you set my soul right. Whew. I'm going to have to keep going. I'll be here all night. Because Zion, what a awesome privilege it is to know that our soul is connected to Yah and that his Ruach is connected to us. And it is he that keeps us in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. I'll get to that in a second. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret. He said, basically, when I was made, the frame of my body, which is the bones, the skeleton system, that becomes the foundation, I guess, for the body. He says, when I was made, you saw all the foundation. You built the foundation before before I came out. You had already laid the foundation for the body that. Whew, and curiously wrought in the lower parts of the earth. Verse 16. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in all continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. Pause. He said, there's a book somewhere that has everything about me written. And that book is a blueprint. And even when I was not completed, the blueprint for my completion was in a book that you wrote and you kept it. So when I was formed, when I was in the belly of my mom, the book of who I was, how we made, the book was already printed. And everything about me, all 60 trillion things that go into making me, was in the book. And as I was developing, you were checking off everything to make sure everything was right. Can you imagine that? He basically says that when there were no bones, you had already counted all the bones and put them in there. When there were no muscles, you had already, when there were no, are y'all starting to understand what I'm saying? There were no sinews, but the sinews was written in the book. He had them all in there. The spleen, the liver, the kidneys, everything, the bowels, the heart, the fingers, the toes, the eyelashes. He made sure that everything was there. Morey, why are you reading this like you're reading it tonight? What is it about this that you want the world to know? I want the world to know, Zion, that when we talk about Israelite children, when we talk about one of our daughters being pregnant, they are not pregnant with a mistake. They are not pregnant with just a glob of flesh. They don't get pregnant with just some kind of human, some kind of growth, like a cancerous growth. No. Well, what do they have? The whole book of the human is already written. And I want to say this to you, Zion. We have no idea really how precious life is. Verse 17. Oh, how precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O Yah. How great is the sum of them. I mean, wow. For you to have already thought everything out for me, it was just. So Grandpa was trying to tell us Hey, y'all, you really need to remember your value to Yah, to remember how much work he has done and how precious you are to him. What's this? Because there's going to come a time when what? You're going to have some enemies. We'll get to that in a moment. And they're going to tell you ain't nothing. They're going to tell you that your baby ain't nothing. They're going to tell you that your life is an accident, random selection of nature. And they're going to cheapen life. And they're going to cheapen the Israelite. They're going to cheapen Israel. So that not only will the world in their mind begin to devalue us, but eventually we were told that Israel will start devaluing herself. So much so that we start doing what? Killing one another. Killing each other. Brown on brown crime. Israel on Israel crime. Why? Don't see no value. We don't see fearfully and wonderfully made. We don't see the very image of Yah. We don't see that the completed, beautiful picture of the Israelite is a book already written by Yah, and that even after our mothers are pregnant, Yah does not forsake. He works with the baby. After the baby is born, then King Dawid said, I know that baby's thoughts. When he wake up, go to bed, I know he's growing up. I know what he's going to say before he said, how he's going to sit, how he's going to live. I've got a whole plan, a righteous and good plan. And you know it is the responsibility of every parent to make sure that we do all we can to help our babies. Watch this. Pre-birth until birth, life, and death, we are to be involved in the preservation of the life of the Israelite. The preservation of the life of the covenant people, not the destruction of it. Why? Because Yah is thinking about us, and his thoughts toward us are precious. Verse 18, if I should count them, what? The thoughts of Yah toward us. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. Wait, what? So much he loves you. So much he loves Zion. When I awake, I'm still with you. Now, verse 19. Surely thou wilt slay the wicked. Huh? Oh, Yah. Well, who's the wicked? The wicked is anyone trying to kill or destroy what Yah has fearfully and wonderfully made, has purposefully and awesomely made, has anyone trying to put a stop to what Yah has started. Talk more, right? Thou wilt slay the wicked, O Yah. Depart from me, therefore, you bloody men. You what? You bloody men. Dawid said, this idea of you trying to kill Israel, whether you kill Israel in the womb, whether you kill Israel as a baby, whether you kill Israel as a toddler, whether you want to kill Israel when you get to be a youth, whether you want to kill Israel and in adolescence. You want to kill Israel, young adult, or old. He said, get away from me, you bloody man. You have no idea what my Yah has done to fashion me. You have no idea how much he knows me. You have no idea how intimately related he is to me and concerned about me. Our king said he cares so much about us, he knows the number of hair on our head. And he says he not only cares about us, but you know, if a bird falls, he knows. And he says, you're much more valuable than a sparrow. Let me continue. I'm almost done. Toda Rabah for y'all being in the room and going through this lesson, because we have to see our values, Zion. Because as a nation of people, one, we got to stop this killing. And number two, we got to protect our daughters and our wives from these evil, bloodthirsty people who constantly talk to them about killing their children. We have to stop that. We do not kill our daughters. We do not kill our sons. Our job as parents is to do everything to protect them, to surround them. Matter of fact, let me finish this psalm and then I'm going to give you these background scriptures and then I'm out. So one, we got to get away from these bloody men. Anybody wanting the blood of Israel, we got to separate from them. Verse 20, for they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. That means there's no regard for who you are and whose you are, for who you are and whose we are. Do not I hate them, O Yah, that hate thee? In other words, we know that the Hebraic word for hate literally means separate. So he said, Yah, do not I separate myself from those who have separated themselves from you? And of course, the answer is yes. Anybody that's not walking with Yah and trying to get one of us to either kill ourselves, to try to get us to kill our brothers, or try to get us to kill our babies, whether they are born or unborn. We got to separate from them people. They don't know Yah and they don't know Torah. And am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. Of course. That's the number one way to know whether or not a person is an enemy or not, is whether they are trying to kill you. If they are trying to kill you, or if they're trying to kill yours, you know that that is an enemy. Those are they that you count as enemies. Verse 23, I got to keep going. Search me, O Yah, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. Verse 24, and see if there be any wicked way in me. He says, Yah, before I finish this song, I want you to search me, because I don't want to be teaching this and then because this is David, so it's our grandfather, and then my grandkids be like, what about you? And so therefore, before we begin to look around at other people and point fingers to other people and what they've done and you ought to look at yourself. I got to look at myself and make sure that we're not allowing this Babylonian beast to start to influence the way we think about the sanctity and preciousness of human life, especially the life of an Israelite, especially the life of our children, whether they are born or unborn. We have to make sure that there is no evil way in us that would cause us to want to become a bloody man or a bloody woman. No, If Yah loved us enough to make us fearful, to fearfully make us, and to wonderfully make us in his image and his likeness, then therefore we're going to ask Abba Yah to show us his likeness in us, that we might see him when we see ourselves and when we see each other. He says, and see if there are any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way, what? Everlasting. What time is it? I got 4 minutes. Let me try to do this. Where did our king get that from? King David, our grandpa. Where grandpa get that from? Well, first of all, no doubt, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And Yahuwah said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So Yah created. Who? Yah created. Who did it? Yah. No evolution. No, Yah. No random acts of nature selected by Mother Nature. No, Yah created man in his own image. And in the image of Yah created he him. Male and female created he them. And Yah blessed them. Genesis chapter 9. Genesis chapter 9. Verse 6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood. This is after the ark had gone through the 40 days and the 40 nights of the flood, and then the rest of the days, around 100 days, and they came out. Yah gave them laws. Verse 6, he says, whoso sheddeth man's blood, of course that means innocent blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of Yah made he man. Do you hear that, Zion? And he says, and you be fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth. Let's go to another verse. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 1. Let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 1. Jeremiah chapter 1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priests that are in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of Yahuwah came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Yehudah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Yehudah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Yehudah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the, in the 5th month. Then the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, before Before, no. Before I formed thee in the belly. Wait, first of all, he said, I'm the one who did it. So when did you form me? Well, before I formed you. So you formed me, yes. But before I formed you, where? Before I formed you in the belly. Before I formed you. Before I formed you. Remember, David said, he had, before I was even completed, he had the whole book. Here it said again, before I formed you in the belly, I already knew you. That's why we don't kill our children in the belly. Because before they were even formed there, Yah already knew them. Before you know them, before you know her, before you know him, Yah already knows them according to the Bible. He said before. Before I formed them. We ain't getting into no arguments with this Babylonian society about when life began. Life begins when Yah says it begins. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Watch this. And before you came out of the womb, wait, huh? Look, I knew you before I formed you. And before you came out of the womb, which means while you were being formed there, I had already done what? I set you apart. The word I sanctified thee is the same word, palah. I was trying to tell you, he uses the word here, sanctified, but palah is another word for set apart. I set you apart. Israel, you're set apart. You are Kodash. You are sanctified. He said, I sanctified you. What else? And I ordained you, which means I appointed you. And in this case, he says, I appointed you to be a prophet. To who? The nations. And time has failed me to talk about the other miraculous conceptions and the miraculous births in the Bible. Like Sarah, knowing that Sarah was going to be pregnant at 90 years old. And not only was she going to get pregnant, Yah said, you're going to have a boy. Why? Because I knew him before I gave him to you. Not only are you going to have a boy, you're going to name him Isaac. What about Rebecca? Oh, you're going to have twins. And the older going to serve the younger one. Why? Because I already know them. I already got their book done. Any more? Yeah, how about John the Baptist and Elizabeth? She couldn't have no kids. Not only are you going to have it, not only are you going to get pregnant, you're going to have a son. And you're not even going to, I'm going to tell you what to name him. You're not even going to name him Zechariah. Guess what you're going to name him? What? You're going to name him Yehochanan. And while that baby was still in the womb, it leaped in the womb at the presence of Hamashiach. And this idea that we letting people convince us, it ain't nothing. You can kill your child, you can kill your baby. You can kill your brother, you can kill your sister. You kill your child. And now we just doing this crazy killing thing with just like life. Listen to me, Zion. Don't fall for that. Yah made you on purpose, with purpose. He made everything about you that makes you unique. Everything about you that makes you one of a kind is wonderful, is awesome, is beautiful. It is precious. And we have no idea. Now, I'm not even dealing with nothing else now except potential. We have no idea what or who it is we're carrying. When our daughters, our wives, our mothers are carrying an Israelite, we have no idea the book. And we have no right at all to come in and say, we don't believe that this is worth anything, so we're just going to kill it. No, we don't get caught up in that. And I'm going to end with this, with our sixth commandment. Thou shalt not kill. Now we know that word is murder. And the way we know whether or not killing is murder is whether or not the person who is being killed is what? Innocent. That's the determiner. Killing the innocent always brings judgment. Even if a person kills a person who is innocent accidentally, according to Torah, still will come under the judgment. The only difference is that person has a right to claim the city of refuge to prove his innocence. But he still has to go through that judgment. Why? Because life is sacred to Yah, and life must always be sacred to us. Why? Because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are made with his awesome power, his awesome wisdom, and his awesome forethought, his thoughts toward us, just too many. And he promised that even after that, he would be with us, Zion. And when I look at the way these nations, this system is crumbling, falling apart, a big reason for it is the killing of our children and the killing of one another. So as Israelites, we got to get away from that. And we do what? We begin to give Abba Yah praise and honor and glory for life and for the blessing and for the gift and for the privilege and for his awesome thoughts toward us, and especially allowing us to be the chosen, to be part of the covenant. Abba Yah, help us. Forgive us and search us. And if there's anything wicked inside, take it out. We know it won't be long. And you're going to come to receive us back to yourself. And in that day, we want to be without spot and without wrinkle. We want our hands to be clean of blood guiltiness. And we want to be of those who understand the value of the precious gift of life that you have given us. Help us to never take that for granted. Keep us, Abba Yah. Hold us and protect us with that hedge our grandfather talked about. Help us to remain true to you, true to Torah, and true one toward another until you return to take us home where we belong. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. More valuable. You are more valuable than you'll ever know. Shalom.